You're listening to a New York Jets episode of the Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the team's latest goings-on as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, Jets fans! Welcome to another New York Jets episode of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. Well, it was fun while it lasted. For a little bit, you thought that the Jets had actually found someone. A guy who could lead this team for the foreseeable future. Something that a Jets draft pick hasn't done since Mark Sanchez. And this guy wasn't even picked by the Jets. He was picked by the Dallas Cowboys in 2018, in the 5th round. I mean, Mike White had every opportunity to lay claim to the Jets starting quarterback job. If he balled out today, granted, against a tough Bills defense, but if this guy could do what he did against the Bengals and a little bit against the Colts again, he would have made life very difficult for Robert Saleh. Now, forget about it. There's no other option. Zach Wilson has to start next week. You can't throw 4 interceptions in a game when you're the backup quarterback and expect to start. That just doesn't work. The reality is, White should have been benched a lot sooner. I don't know why Saleh didn't pull the trigger. It looked like the Bills had figured White out. They forced him to make really bad throws. They were getting into the passing lanes. It was really a thorough domination by the Bills. I mean, this is something that we've seen a lot this year. And quite frankly, it's sickening. What was the one job that Robert Saleh had this year? Show progress. No one was expecting the playoffs. But you wanted this team to take a noticeable step in the right direction. You wanted people to say, in a year or two, the New York Jets will be in the playoffs. That hasn't happened. The defense is inept. It is worse than last year. It is worse than any defense in Jets history. It is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Robert Saleh's theory of give these guys a chance and they'll prove that they can play is wrong, okay? It has been proven wrong. There's nothing that can be done about it now, but next year, Joe Douglas needs to add depth to this roster. The reality is, I want quality backups at every position. No more guys like Ronald Blair, Hamilcar Rashed, Jared Davis, Quincy Williams. No, I want quality NFL players. This defense is undisciplined. This defense is slow. This defense is clueless. What's one quality that scouts look for in football players. IQ. How smart are they? This Jets defense is comprised of idiots. CJ Mosley's an idiot. Okay, CJ Mosley's not a good player. There is no one on the Jets defense that really understands football. There is no one on the defense that can recognize a sweep, can recognize trickery. To boil it down to the ground, the common denominator for all these football players that the Jets have on defense is that they just have a very low football IQ. Can that be improved upon? The answer is yes. It's the coach's job to drill concepts into them. But this coaching staff isn't doing that. It's hard to have a lot of confidence in them right now. You can like Salah, that's perfectly fine. But you can't sit there and tell me that you have 100% confidence in him. I don't. I don't have 100% confidence in LaFleur. I don't have 100% confidence in Ulbrich. If it was up to me, Robert Saleh would be calling the plays. Enough with this CEO nonsense. You can call the plays on defense and oversee the offense. It's hard, there's no question, but you're looking at this through an Adam Gase lens, where Gase was so removed from the defense that defensive players thought Greg Williams was the head coach. If done right, a head coach can call the plays on defense and oversee the offense. I mean, it does bring up an interesting point. Do you want Salah involved in the offense? This guy doesn't have an offensive background, but I understand that he's the head coach. Everything goes through him. It's kind of an interesting dichotomy. But the biggest issue that the Jets have right now is their defense. Josh Allen was great. He completed 75% of his passes for 366 yards and 2 touchdowns. This guy's a great player. No question. But that is the highest completion percentage and the highest passing yards he's had in a game this year. It is perfectly reasonable to expect the Jets defense, or any defense, to limit the opposing quarterback's effectiveness. Hell, the Jets just did it a couple weeks ago against Joe Burrow. The Jaguars did it against Josh Allen. The Dolphins did it against Lamar Jackson. This Jets defense that brought in a defensive guru to be their head coach has now given up at least 31 points in the last 4 games. I understand that the Jets have no talent on defense. Totally get that. Terrible job by Joe Douglas. Okay, he's really not as good as people make him out to be. I am very, very, very skeptical of him. You can't fire him. You're not going to fire him after he just hired a head coach and drafted a quarterback. But he's really got to do better next year. He's got to add talent. It's just that simple. He's got to be aggressive in free agency. He's got to be aggressive with trades. He's got to hit in the draft. I could see a world where I'm calling for Joe Douglas's head next year. It's going to be put up or shut up time for him. in the offseason. So while it's true that the Jets have no talent on defense, you can sorta kinda compensate for that with sound play calling, a smart defensive game plan. And more often than not, we have not seen that from the Jets. For goodness sake, you leave Javelin Guidry out on an island against Stephon Diggs on back-to-back plays. What do you think is going to happen? Of course he's going to catch a touchdown. Stephon Diggs is great, but he's only had 100-yard game this year. Before today. As great as he is, there's no excuse for anyone to have 8 catches for 162 yards and a touchdown. There's no excuse for Gabriel Davis to have 3 catches for 105 yards. And the sad part is, this was so predictable. I was screaming for the Jets to add defense. No, we need to add offense. Offense, always offense. Well, congratulations. You've got some solid players on offense. I like Wilson. Love AVT. Elijah Moore's solid. Little overrated by some Jets fans, but he's solid. I think he's going to turn into a good player. But look at this defense. It is chock full of guys who wouldn't even be practice squatters on a Super Bowl team. Should the coaches be able to make them better? The answer is yes. These 4 straight games where the Jets have given up at least 31 points is inexcusable. I don't care how bad the roster is. The play calling is horrific. The defense looks lost. This is on the coaches a little bit, but I am willing to grant them the courtesy that I've granted other people. Talent wins over scheme in the NFL. In order to win, you need good football players. There is a difference between player X and player X's backup. Maybe player X shouldn't be starting, but that's one thing. You just saw Ben Roethlisberger's backup fail to beat the Detroit Lions. The Lions, a winless team. You just saw Javelin Guidry, Brandon Eccles' backup, get burned by Stephon Diggs. You saw Aaron Rodgers' backup, Jordan Love, do nothing against the Chiefs. That is a philosophy that needs to change. Alright, at the end of the season, I want Saleh to say, I was wrong about that. Instead of thinking that we can mold these players into solid backups, we need to add as many good football players as possible. Because the Jets don't have a lot of them. But now to the offense. The Mike White era is over. It was fun while it lasted. Alright. We all really enjoyed it. Being at Jets Bengals was an experience that I'll never forget. And you know how Jets fans have an irrational attachment to Mark Sanchez? Jets fans are going to have an irrational attachment to Mike White. That's okay. That's part of being a fan. But you've got to realize that Mike White isn't a starter. Again, there is a difference between player X and player X's backup. Sure, I got deluded into thinking that Salah's theory was right. But as I've seen this season progress, I realized that was just an aberration. The reality is, any player can go off in any given game, especially when you have no tape on the guy. I mean, White was making his first NFL start. It's very hard to prepare to play someone when you don't have tape on him. What were the Bengals going to use? His Western Kentucky tape? No. The reality is, White's been figured out. His time as a starter is over. I think he's proved that he can be competent. I'm not going to kill him too much for throwing 4 interceptions against this great Bills defense. If he was the starting quarterback, I'd kill him. But since he's the backup, and realistically, he was always the backup, I'll cut him some slack. That Bills defense has destroyed much better quarterbacks than Mike White. I mean, White was throwing terrible balls. The interceptions were dreadful. Alright, maybe the first one wasn't his fault. His arm got hit. But the rest were. I mean, they were just badly thrown balls, really bad decisions. It's done. It's over. The Mike White era is dead. Zach Wilson will start next week. And it's great that he's going to have a soft landing spot against the Dolphins. I understand that the Dolphins just destroyed the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. Totally get that. But the Dolphins are just 3-7. Alright, they're really not that good. And the game is at MetLife. That's a game that the Jets should win. I mean, I had a couple concerns with Wilson. The first one was him coming back against this great Bills defense. That didn't happen. My second concern was that the second Wilson struggled, fans would be booing him, they'd call for Mike White, and then you shatter Wilson's confidence, you shatter the fans' confidence in him. That just wouldn't end well. Now, that's not going to happen. Even if Wilson lays an egg, you're not going to hear Mike White chants. Could you hear Flacco chants? Maybe, but Flacco's probably going to be inactive. The smart money is on the Jets carrying 3 quarterbacks the rest of the season on the active roster. Josh Johnson may stay on the practice squad, or they may choose to give that spot to someone else. But on game days, Flacco's probably going to be inactive. Makes you wonder why Joe Douglas traded for him. Then you remember that Joe Douglas really isn't that good at his job. So, that sort of kind of explains it. In a weird way, this could be a blessing in disguise for the Jets. I truly believe, and I have never wavered from this, that Zach Wilson will be a really, really, really good quarterback in this league. I do think he's going to be the savior for the Jets. I think he's going to be everything that the Jets want him to be. Alright. I picked him up in my Dynasty League. Maybe this hiatus proves beneficial for Wilson. He got a breather. He got to watch the offense from afar. He saw it work against the Bengals. He saw it work against the Colts. And he saw it fail against the Bills. So now he can see what worked and what didn't work. He can figure out why this worked and why this didn't work. At the end of the day, what was the A1 scenario? Always Zach Wilson coming back and looking great, right? Because even if White remained the starter, you'd be furious at Joe Douglas for wasting the second overall pick on Zach Wilson. Now, there is no quarterback controversy. There's no question about it. Zach Wilson is the guy. So he doesn't have to constantly be looking over his shoulder. He was able to take a little breather, see what worked and what didn't work. And I fully expect him to come back next week against the Dolphins and play really well. I expect him to play well against the Texans the week after and the Eagles the week after. If you're pessimistic, I get it, okay? That's in a Jets fan's nature. But if I'm looking at this objectively, I see a young quarterback with a ton of talent that was able to, in essence, reset himself, and now he can play the football that we all know he's capable of playing. He hasn't done it on a consistent basis. But now that he's gotten this breather, now that he sees what works and what doesn't, I really think Zach Wilson is going to ball out these next few weeks. And I'll be right here to discuss those games right after they happen every single week. You're going to get a New York Islanders show tomorrow night, Brooklyn Nets show the week after, New York Islanders show the week after that. Regular episodes of the Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon. Tomorrow, you're going to get an interview that I did with Ed Groover, the author of The Ice Bowl. Until next time, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.